make some sense of it all, but I can see it makes no sense at all. Is it cool to go to sleep on the floor? 'Cause I don't think that I can take anymore. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is Wednesday, January 7th, 2026. And WestJet seats, have you seen this? WestJet is trying to compress as many people into their small planes as possible. And it's so small that people can't fit, like from their hip to their knee doesn't fit in the seat. And so they have to like turn their knees sideways. It's wild. And I heard about this and I've got video for you. So it is, that's not a good idea, right? WestJet used to be a good airline, but now it is not a good airline. Nick Shirley is being censored by Google, not X, and his X profile doesn't come up if you Google it. He says, I'm sure it's fixed now, but why would Google censor Nick Shirley? Is Google in on this whole fraud pyramid scheme as well? Maybe. Iranian revolution? Holy cow. We may be watching a full-blown uprising against the mullahs in Iran right happening right now, really. So I'll show you all of that footage. European, that's probably in the second half of the show today. European positioning to send troops to Ukraine. And so we've got to talk about Ukraine because Carney's over there. They're talking about having Canadian boots on the ground. They're talking about having European boots on the ground, like England and France and Germany and all of these things. And it's very concerning because that's like membership in NATO. That's not, I don't think that's going to work. I don't think Putin's going to agree to that. I don't think that that's the intent of the peace negotiations to have Russia negotiate a loss. That doesn't make any sense. Dave Eby's backing out of drug decriminalization. All of that stuff that's happening in BC is happening to a lesser extent somewhat, but still is happening in Ontario as well. And I'm sure it's happening across the country. And so we are having our quality of life driven down at a rapid speed and a whole bunch of people killed by bad policies of the government. And nobody seems really willing to even talk about it, never mind fix it. And it's weird how slow all of this is moving when you watch how fast Donald Trump is able to move and get things done for his citizens. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. Of course, we've got to start with Venezuela. So we're going to do Venezuela, Greenland, Ukraine. And I think that's going to be the free show today. We'll see. I want to get through Ukraine. That's my goal. So I may have to, you know what? I'm promoting Ukraine right now because I don't think I'll get through it. I don't think I'll get through Greenland. So breaking 911 says, Trump says, I'm pleased to announce that the interim authorities in Venezuela will be turning over between 30 and 50 million barrels of high quality sanctioned oil to the United States of America. This oil will be sold at market price and that money will be controlled by me as president of the United States of America to ensure it's used to benefit the people of Venezuela and the United States. I have asked Energy Secretary Chris Wright to execute this plan immediately. It will be taken by the storage ships and brought directly to unloading docks in the United States. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So the crude oil that was supposed to be shipped to conflict areas paid for by non-US dollar money by yuan or wherever, or Iran, whatever they use for currency. I'm not sure. I don't know the Iranian currency. Lira? No, it's not the lira. They lost that money. If they paid to Maduro, that money's gone. The United States maybe has control of it, but they don't have control of it anymore and they don't have the oil. So dismantling it and then selling that oil, taking that oil and selling it on the open market and saying we're going to use this for the benefit of the Venezuelans and United States. That's better than benefiting the drug cartels and the communist dictatorships and the communist nations around the world. And they don't want, what Rubio's saying, what Trump is saying is, we don't want the communist dictatorships like China to have a foothold in North America or in the Western Hemisphere to spread their communism around and to be the engine, the driving engine, the money engine of their communist dictatorships. We don't want that. And I'm worried that Canada is going to replace Venezuela as the money engine. And I hope that I'm wrong in that prediction. I hope that there's counter moves being prepared to prevent that eventuality, because if Trump goes down and saves Venezuela and sacrifices Canada. Well, we've just traded places with Venezuela, and that's not good, right? Like, holy smoke. Wealth Moose says, so let me get this straight. After 2 decades of carbon shaming, capital flight, pipeline obstruction, ESG weaponization, Mark Carney suddenly discovers that Canadian oil is clean, green, competitive, and affordable. That's not leadership. Alberta will pay the price for this nonsense. We are already paying the price for this nonsense. It's already happening. Juno News says the violent Venezuela gang Tren de Agua has officially established a presence in Canada, according to Canadian authorities, utilizing the country as a major logistical hub for illegal activities. Yikes. So when the United States comes in helicopters ablazing, don't be too surprised, everybody in Canada, right? Like, this is prep work for that. Interesting. Do you think Trump will allow that to continue? Even though Canada is clearly allowing that to continue. Why do I think Canada is allowing that to continue? Because we had a fentanyl czar that is just gone. He doesn't exist. It doesn't, what fentanyl czar? All I saw was some propaganda photos of that dude in front of some rented Black Hawk helicopters. And that was the end of the fentanyl czar, right? Like, so no news about the fentanyl czar. James Woods says, has there ever been an action by President Trump that wasn't blocked, subverted, or ignored by Democrats? The oil in Venezuela would have been under the control of China. In our hemisphere, Trump checkmated them. So, of course, Democrats are losing their mind. They hate America. Yeah. But again, I think there's more to that. And China has a lot of control in Canada, and that can't continue. There was a 16-minute video that was talking about how what happened in Venezuela was not regime change in the classic sense. And the woman who made that video is this lady here. And somebody clipped a 5-minute long video. We're going to listen to, I think, the first 2 minutes. Well worth it. She's talking about what's going on here and the impacts to Canada. And I think that there's nuggets of value in here. So I want to share this, but it's not the whole video. And this isn't even the whole video. It's clipped from a 16-minute long video from yesterday's video that I shared. And you should check it out because it's well worth it. What's going on here is much more broad and much more deep than what's being presented. It's not Trump's regime war. This isn't Trump W. Bush. Okay, here we go.
Clear up the biggest misconception right now. Many former MAGA allies, Venezuelans, Marjorie Taylor Greene, are screaming that this is neocon regime change 2.0. They're just looking at the surface or outright lying. But listen to Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He told us exactly what this is.
I want to start with this big picture question. Is the United States now at war with Venezuela?
There's not a war. I mean, we are at war against drug trafficking organizations. It's not a war against Venezuela. You cannot continue to have the largest oil reserves, in the world under the control of adversaries of the United States, not benefiting the people of Venezuela and stolen by a handful of oligarchs around the world, including inside of Venezuela, but not benefiting the people of that country.
Did you catch that? He didn't blame socialism. He didn't blame communism. He blamed oligarchs and drug trafficking organizations. Now, that takes us back to Trump and his targeting of Canada, which no one seems to want to talk about. Because when you put the words oligarchs and drug trafficking organizations in the same context, you aren't just talking about the cartels in Mexico or Colombia. You're talking about key characteristics of the British Empire, which is the epitome of oligarchy. Or to put it another way, the rule of the few, which is what oligarchy means. And when it comes to drug trafficking organizations, the British Empire has been the most notorious entity in the world when it comes to making money off of drug trafficking, going back over 200 years, including the notorious Opium Wars of the 19th century. This has never stopped. It's just taken a new form. And that's the importance of Canada in this picture. It is run by the empire's favorite central banker, Mark Carney, and it is the major political outpost for the crown in North America, used for drug trafficking, as the president mentioned, illegal immigration, and terrorism. Unlike, say, someone like Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, whom Trump accurately characterized as terrified of the cartels, Carney has actually facilitated the financing arm of the cartels in his former role as the head of the Bank of England.
So we're just going to leave that there. There's more to that. There's a whole 16-minute video, and realistically, you should watch the Asian guy who was talking about Iran and how Iran fits in with the whole Venezuela thing, and the Alex Jones interview with the other guy talking about how Cuba, Colombia, Mexico, and a lot of other Central American countries, not Brazil, a lot of other Central American countries play into this whole thing as well, and they were using Cubans to hold Maduro hostage, according to that interview, because they were going to martyr him. They were going to say he died for the regime, he died for the cause, and so on and so forth. I don't know for sure, but that's what was said in those interviews. And I think that, again, more information is better than less information. Table Salt says, let's be rational here about oil in Venezuela. Is the USA really going to rely on Venezuela for their energy security? The entire Midwestern USA, Pad 2, is powered by Alberta oil. Venezuela oil means North America is one Bolshevik revolution away from disruption. Stupid. Let's all get along. Yeah, like that makes a little bit more sense. Brian Lilly says the threat to Canadian or Canada's oil industry isn't Venezuela oil coming online in the weeks and months ahead and replacing Canadian oil. That will take time. The risk is Canada losing out on much needed capital investment in favor of Venezuela. Read and share. I think that's accurate. So yesterday I was talking to Greg, and we were talking about all of this stuff, and I was outlining kind of my understanding of the videos that I just outlined that you should go watch, and what I think's happening, and that I think things are going to get more crazy before people understand the full width and breadth of what's actually going on here. I don't think that this stops at Venezuela. I don't think this really has to do with Venezuela, other than Venezuela is the money laundering capital and the election and fraud and the election theft capital of the deep state. That's where it was centered. That's where the Dominion tech was developed, distributed. It was originally used to change elections in South America to make them American policy friendly. So to make sure that they would play ball with the United States, they used Smartmatic and Dominion to place people they wanted, and then the leaders down there got a hold of it, and then it got out, and then it was used against the United States in 2020 and 2016 and many other times as well. And it's been used against Canada. So that was the discussion between Greg and I. And he was saying that, oh, well, it's definitely about the oil. And I said, the oil is going to take time. The oil is it doesn't snap on like that. If Trump sees a benefit from the oil, he's going to be on his way out of office. Like, it's going to take years to bring that online. It doesn't make rational sense. There are other things at play here, and that was my argument. And then we discussed things again a bit more broadly. And so there's a lot going on with the Venezuela thing. Holy cow, right? Holy smoke. I think we're going to get through Ukraine. Stand Up for Trump says, in a jaw-dropping announcement, President Trump disclosed that George Soros and Reid Hoffman are funding Antifa and the left-wing violence against ICE. Trump vows to launch a RICO investigation into George Soros. Trump said they're going to have some problems. Does Trump have your support on this? I don't care about does Trump have your support on this. It's interesting that if that's true, and again, you've got to take it with a grain of salt, because sometimes people take clips out of context. Sometimes people see AI clips and they think they're real. I've been guilty of that myself. And there are all sorts of things on the internet that are happening and things like that. So if that's true, and Trump is naming names that blatantly, he's daring them to move forward. Like, sue me. Okay. I'm the president of the United States, and this is what I'm saying. If he's saying that, it's jaw-dropping, and it indicates that he's got a lot of evidence to back up what he's saying, because generally you don't say stuff like that unless you can back it up, right? So that's interesting to me. Okay, we've got to talk about Ukraine, and the reason is Chrystia Freeland. The reason is Mark Carney's there in Paris talking with the, quote, coalition of the willing. And this group of people, I have never looked at a group of people and thought to myself, these people don't represent anything that has to do with Europeans' best interests at all, right? Donald Trump is not here, so this is the coalition of the willing. In the middle, there's, I think that's Macron and Zelensky, and I don't know who's the left stage right of Zelensky, but there's Keir Starmer and Maloney and Ursula von der Leyen. And where's Mark Carney? Mark Carney's in there somewhere. Is he in the background? I don't see Carney. Oh, there he is on the left-hand side. Right beside, is that Rutte, the super tall guy? Or no, is that Besant? Is that Besant? Anyway, or is it Rutte? It might be Rutte. So these guys are the coalition of the willing. And this is what the coalition of the willing are talking about: boots on the ground in Ukraine and security assurances provided by the United States, which is NATO. It's NATO. That's NATO. And that is a hard red line no from Russia. So this is going to fall flat on its face, and it's designed to make the peace impossible in Ukraine.
Today, we signed a declaration of intent on the deployment of forces to Ukraine in the event of a peace deal. This is a vital part of our ironcast commitment to stand with Ukraine for the long term. It paves the way for the legal framework under which British, French and partner forces could operate on Ukrainian soil, securing Ukraine's skies and seas and regenerating Ukraine's armed forces for the future. We discussed these issues in detail today, and so I can say that following a ceasefire, the UK and France will establish military hubs across Ukraine and build protected facilities for weapons and military equipment to support Ukraine's defensive needs. And with our coalition partners, we've also agreed significant further steps. First, that we will participate in US-led monitoring and verification of any ceasefire. Second, we will support the long-time provision of armaments for Ukraine's defence. And third, we will work towards binding commitments to support Ukraine in the case of a future armed attack by Russia. This is all about building the practical foundations on which peace would rest.
Keir Starmer, first quick question. If invading Russians came into Ukraine, would you agree it's important to protect Ukraine's borders? And I think that he would say yes, because that's what he just got through saying. We're going to send people on the ground to make sure peace and, Ukrainian borders are strong against Russian transgressions and things like that. So why won't they protect the UK's borders for the UK's citizens? Why is it the UK has to go fight and die in Kiev, in Ukraine, in trenches against Russia, when the real enemy is flooding the United Kingdom with Africans and Indians and Middle Easterners and sending the Brits to die in Russia? Why is any... I would love to ask these people, but I'd be carried out. They'd be like, get this guy out of here. Here's Merz, and he's the German chancellor. I don't know if this is in English. It might not be. Friedrich Merz said that Germany will take responsibility for the security of Ukraine and the entire continent as a whole. We will protect everyone, says Merz. And this guy says, you can't even stop Antifa terrorists from blowing up the power grid in your capital. That's not even fixed yet, as far as I understand it. I read reports this morning of people in hallways trying to stay warm because their building is freezing, and the hallway is the most warm place because the apartments will act as what are those things called? Airlock, like when you're in a spaceship and you're trying to go to space, but you have that place where you can open the door and close the door. Anyway, Melissa, I've watched too many space shows. Melissa says, I guess it works in like submarines too. You got to have an airlock between like the inside and the outside inside. Melissa shows, we didn't listen to Merz. Hold on. Here's Merz, maybe, if he's in English.
Schließen dabei grundsätzlich nichts aus. Deutschland ist schon heute im 4. Jahr des Krieges stärkster Unterstützer der Ukraine. Es wird auch nach einem Waffenstillstand eine deutsche Verantwortung für die Sicherheit der Ukraine und damit für die gemeinsame europäische Sicherheit geben. Wir haben heute darüber beraten, wie...
I just don't believe that you can accomplish that. Here's Mark Carney, and Melissa says Carney basically alludes to the fact, so he doesn't say it outright, he alludes to the idea that Canada's military is building its forces and headcount for boots on the ground in Ukraine as part of coalition of the willing. And again, these people don't seem like people who are working in our best interests. Uh-oh, my computer's struggling for a minute. I don't know why. Let's go. Well, that's annoying. Sorry, everybody. I don't know if the stream... Oh, there we go.
Backstop speaks from the coalition, the willing forces, so-called multilateral force, of which Canada would be a member under this framework, and very importantly, the United States is playing a backstop role. Do we have so to get to your specific question, do we have the bench strength, to use your term? Well, we've been building that bench, and we're going to continue to build that bench. the largest military buildup in generations, coming over the course of the next 5 years, an additional $80 billion of investment, in part because of issues like this, very importantly because of issues in our perimeter. Then the backstops become the coalition.
So the backstop becomes the coalition of the willing, and that's the implication for boots on the ground. That's the suggestion of, we're gonna put boots on the ground, and the coalition of the willing is going to be there to protect Ukraine from any bad Russians and things like that. And that's such nonsense. It's nonsense. Here is I've talked about this before, but here's Viktor Orban again saying that in Brussels they've decided to go to war by using by giving Ukraine a $90 billion loan or something like that. They plan on getting their money back, and so because they plan on getting their money back, the Hungarian leader has extrapolated that they intend to go to war and they intend to win because they're going to get their money back. And so Andrew says, Viktor Orban says the EU has already decided for war. In Brussels, they've decided to go to war. They've decided in favor for it. Yes, and this was a speech from a little while ago, but yeah, and I don't trust any of these people. And Ursula von der Leyen says, a strong display of unity for Ukraine today. No. These are self-interested leaders who are trying desperately to change the channel on, I think, Donald Trump exposing their grift, or a lot of them are trying to get ahead of Donald Trump exposing their grift and their fraud. But I don't think anything can stop the exposure at this point in time. It's a train, and if you can see it barreling into the station. So I don't trust these people. I don't think that these people are going to help anybody in Europe, anybody in Canada, anybody in the West. Okay, Ursula says, a strong display of unity for Ukraine today in Paris at the Coalition of the Willing, as the Coalition of the Willing leaders meeting for EU member states, NATO allies, and friends of Ukraine. Our joint statement sends a clear message. We collectively stand by Ukraine, and a safe, secure, prosperous future lies ahead. What utter nonsense. These people do not represent sanity, I don't think, at all. Coalition of the Willing, are they being serious? Who the heck came up with that? And so these people look like nonces and just ridiculous. Brian Lilly says, Mark Carney is denying that he chose not to ask Chrystia Freeland to resign over concerns about a minority parliament. And this interaction, I didn't really hear anything of substance in it. They say, did you ask her to, here, I didn't see much of substance here, but Carney's not much substance guy.
Did you ask her not to quit because of the minority parliament situation right now?
No, absolutely not. First off, let me.
I should say, as a member of parliament.
Let me. No. Just to be clear. Ms. Freeland, Chrystia has served our country for well over a decade in a formal role as a parliamentarian, certainly in a number of ministerial posts, and served with great distinction. She was. I had her as my special envoy after she left cabinet for the Ukraine reconstruction. Judgment became her judgment that she could be more useful for that process as she was leaving, as she was retiring as a parliamentarian, as a direct advisor. My judgment was that taking that role would be consistent with resigning as an MP, and I welcomed her doing that, and I'm pleased that for Ukraine, and again, if I can reemphasize and bring it back to today, there is a real momentum. Nothing's assured, but there's real momentum in this peace process, and the security guarantees are incredibly important, but as is the reconstruction and the prosperity plan, and she'll be there to work on that. And look, we'll have a by-election. There'll be a few by-elections coming up, and we'll run great candidates, and the people in those ridings will decide who they want to send.
I think it's criminal what is going on. There's at least rules crafted around this. Blacklock's reporter says, Conflict of Interest Act, Clause 8, no public office holder shall use information that is obtained in his or her position as a public office holder and that is not available to the public to further or seek further the public office holder's private interests. Section 10 of the Act states no MP shall be influenced by an offer of outside employment. Section 33, no former public office holder. What about Bank of Montreal, right? Scott Bryson. Section 33, no former public office holder shall act in such a manner as to take improper advantage of his or her previous public office. Ethics Canada confirmed to Blacklocks that Chrystia Freeland was subject to the act when she accepted the Ukrainian appointment. So she has violated the act. And is there any consequences? No. Ooh, swing and a miss again. Darn, right? Set up the football again, please, Lucy. I'm going to try and kick it. So, wah, wah. We don't hold politicians to account ever. And that's a Western tradition that extends back as long as I've been born anyway. Nobody ever gets held to account for anything they do. And it's kind of an ongoing joke. And people get mad at the politicians, and sometimes the politicians step down. But even then, they get replaced by people who do exactly the same thing as what the previous person inhabiting the office was doing, because they don't work for us. They work for somebody else. And they get hired to implement certain like Kickstarter campaign goals. You get certain things done in this 10 years, and then you're going to be successful, and then we'll cut you loose. You're retired. You don't have to do anything else anymore. You don't have to lie to anybody anymore. You're done. That's how it works. Wealth Moose says the timeline matters. Days after consulting Canadian CEOs on investments in Ukraine, MP Cara Freeland accepts a role advising Ukraine's president on attracting investment. Same sector, same contract, same week. Federal law bars public office holders from using their position to further private interests. This isn't about intent, it's about conflict. If this were anyone else, it would already be under review. If this was a CPC person, it would already have been undone. Peter Menzies is responding to Mario Dion. Mario Dion's the former ethics commissioner. And again, if you violate the ethics laws, $500 fine, slap on the wrist. And then you get to walk into your ethics violating thing and say, here's your economic advice today, Mr. Zelensky, says Chrystia Freeland, based on all the information she had privately in her private office that is of Canadian background, right? So it's not good. And we are, the Canadian citizen who trusted her, are losing out. And she's making herself rich based on the information she's gleaned in that position. Pretty crazy stuff, if you ask me. And with that, we've got to say goodbye to the stream. We've got lots more show. If you want the whole show, head over to CanadaPoly.com. If not, that's okay. I'll be around tomorrow. And for everybody else, we will continue as soon as I end the stream right here.